give you the news. Printed the info, we gave you the clues. Owners' profits were always sky high. Changing market now threatens our lives. Post-literation, critical reading, dumbed down nation, signs have been breeding. TV sucking ideas from our head. Public discourse just about dead. We'll ride the dinosaur. Yeah, ride the dinosaur.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Navel Gazing. My name is Eugene Driscoll. Wait, what happened?
Said you just right into it.
I said, I'm shy. Hi, everybody.
Yeah.
Before I begin, I want to read a word from our sponsor, valleygivesback.org. The best gift builds a better tomorrow. Hey, hey guys, don't talk until you're introduced.
Oh, sorry.
I'm stealing something from the Bobby Lee podcast, Tiger Belly. The best gift builds a better tomorrow. Name a Valley nonprofit in your estate plan and create a legacy that tells future generations what mattered to you. Making a gift that costs nothing during your lifetime is easy, Stephan, and revocable if things change. With a planned gift, you have the power to impact the Valley forever without affecting your current lifestyle. Your action will inspire others to make a difference in their own way. Remember the Valley. Ask your accountant, financial planner, or attorney about plan giving options. Plan now, give later, impact tomorrow. Learn more at valleygivesback.org. I have trouble with the gives back. I sort of...
You do a nice job with that.
Yeah. Thank you. Maybe
Very
I have a second
smooth,
career. Anybody ever go into voice acting at 45 years old? Does that happen?
Leo Paul, the former mayor of Litchfield, has a voiceover business. We can get you his number.
All right, let's talk about that
all right.
off mic. So I want to welcome to the podcast. This is this is the second podcast I've recorded this evening. It's November 6th, the day after Election Day. I'm not sure exactly what order I will post them, but joining me for post-election babble, I guess, is Seymour First Selectman Kurt Miller. Welcome back, Mr. Miller.
Good evening.
And then returning to the podcast is Stephan Behuniak, the chairman of the Seymour Democratic Town Committee. Hello, Stephan.
Hello, Eugene.
Stephan looks like death warmed over. He hasn't slept. How are you feeling, Stephan? Are you going to be able to make it? And you guys just came from a Board of Selectmen meeting.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, nothing energizes me quite like a Valley Indy navel gazing episode. So I'm ready to go all night.
All right. So where do you guys want to start? I'm actually, you know what? I'm as tired of Stephan. This was my idea. Actually, Kurt, you sent me a text yesterday at about 10 p.m. while I was in the middle of trying to put together a number of stories on what was going on in Derby, Ansonia.
Derby and Ansonia, nothing on Seymour, though. Oh,
Well,
and Seymour.
Well, what we do every 2 years in Seymour with the
you do every 2 years. You do a story on Seymour.
When you guys, are having, when you're asking the public to spend $100 million on tablecloths or whatever that recreation thing was. All right, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Oh, we are off to quite a start. This is going to be a fun 3.5 hours.
So, all right, so let's start on that.
Can I get a second bottle of water?
I've got
All right.
unlimited water here.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I know.
Should we start about the recreation center? Because there were some questions online on Valley Indy Facebook today, or one person said, well, wait, we just rejected the community center, the ask for $15 million. We said no, but the town is moving ahead anyway in some form. So maybe provide an update. I don't know how to broach this subject without going through the entire backstory, but basically the town asked for permission yesterday on election day from voters to borrow $15 million for a new recreation center. However, it didn't mean that the town was necessarily going to spend $15 million. You were looking to do perhaps a private-public partnership, some type of, maybe I'll just throw it over to you. Because I've sat through 90 minutes and I don't want to miss 90 minutes about this subject. I don't want to mischaracterize it. I just want to stop talking.
The question specifically asked, can we borrow $15 million to build a community center? It didn't ask, do people want us to build a community center or not? It was just, can we borrow the money to do so? So what we wanted to do was to stimulate conversation because we have a very hard time sometimes in Seymour engaging the residents. So we did things a little bit differently, and I think we can all agree that there's been an awful lot of conversation in the last week as people realized this vote was coming up. They started asking questions. A lot of people were pushing around the podcast that we did.
Yeah, I can tell you from like an analytical Facebook page view thing, it took off in the last week.
Yeah.
I had reposted it just because I needed some new content, and we had done that a month ago. And yeah, it really did. It seems like people ignore everything until the last possible second because everyone's got busy lives.
Right.
But
I didn't expect the vote to be that close, to be honest with you. I thought it was going to be a bigger spread, similar to the way the road vote went, where people were so positive for it and very few voted against it. That's kind of what I expected. The biggest pushback I saw from people, and I'm sure Stephan will weigh in too, was we like the idea of a community center. It's just we don't know enough about it. We don't have any of the specific details. And while we were able to provide some details in the podcast and things like that, there's still a lot of open areas. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move forward with that process. So at our first meeting in December, we're going to name a building committee, and then that building committee is going to start the process. So there'll be a lot of residential engagement. We'll have public hearings. We'll do survey monkeys, things like that, trying to bring in as much information as we possibly can from the residents.
Let me just interrupt for 1 second, though, and refresh my memory. I know we've talked about this before, but why ask the question in the first place if you're going to do this committee?
Well, we're going to do this
to
all
get a
along.
certain number in this vote? Like, do you have like a developer who is saying, "Hey, I'm willing to invest if if their support is at least 60-40, I'll do something." Or
well, we have two developers that are interested.
Did they want you to
building
gauge the public sentiment before committing or anything like that?
No, that was from our perspective. Again, we struggle sometimes with residential engagement. And the concern that I have is that if we went the other way and did it kind of the traditional way where we put $75,000 or $100,000 up front, did all the planning, that we might ultimately get voted down. So before we invested any money, I wanted to kind of stimulate the conversation.
Shock and awe.
That's exactly what it was. And you saw how much the conversation started. We've been literally talking about this since the spring. And, the residents finally became engaged in the last week. And it's not like it was hidden. It's been out there. But that was the whole goal of this. So now no one can say, well, I'm surprised we're building a community center, or I don't know anything about it. Everyone knows that we want to build a community center. Now they just want to know all the specifics. So hopefully over the next 3 or 4 months, we'll be able to specifically put that together, get that plan out there. So all those people that said, I would love a community center, but I'm voting no because I don't have any information, and I absolutely get that. We're now going to provide them all the information that they need. So hopefully the one objection that they had, and I mean, Stephan, in fairness, he voted no, supports the community center, but didn't feel there was enough information out there. So when we talked to Selectman about moving the question through, he voted no, and that's what he said. And we understand that. So hopefully now...
Will you have to do another vote down the road?
If we don't borrow money, then no. We don't necessarily have to do that. It would be Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and then a town meeting. So it would be the way we would enter into any other contract if we went into a public-private partnership. But again, we're going to have, like I said, public hearings, invite the residential input. It's not something that we're just trying to sneak through. It's just we chose to do it differently.
Are you worried at all that you might have tainted sort of the jury pool on this? Because there are people who are saying on social media right now, whether that is representative of the whole town, who knows? Well, wait, we just said no. No, you can't get another shot at the whatever that phrase is. A bite at the apple. Thank you, Stephan.
Well,
from the bleachers.
What we can do is when we vote on the budget in April or May, we can just add a question. Do you want to borrow? At that point, we'll know the exact amount. So let's say it's, $11,462,000. We can put that specific question and have it voted on during the budget referendum if we choose. So.
And the motivation behind this is not because you're just like looking for like the Kurt Miller Memorial Gym or something like that.
No.
You have a community center now that's a dump.
Yeah, it's falling apart. We've uncovered more problems just in the last couple weeks. We're going to have to spend millions just to bring it up to snuff, and we don't add any programming space. And the biggest issue we hear from residents is, there's not enough programming going on. We wish we could have more for the kids. We wish we could have more for the seniors. We wish we can do more stuff for the 20 and 30-year-olds. This community center would allow us to do that.
Stephan, did you want to weigh in on the community center issue? Because you didn't like the process, but you ended up voting actually yes on the question, if I am guessing correctly.
We can't.
You might have the flu, Stephan. I don't know if you're awake right now.
It's impolite to ask how someone votes, Eugene.
My job is to be impolite.
Yeah, I definitely support a new community center. You mentioned that our community center is a dump. I think that's a slap in the face to our dump, which is actually a lovely place to go. Probably my favorite town-owned property. The community center is not a great place to go under any circumstances. And
Wait, what? You just lost me. I can't tell. You're so deadpan. I can't tell if you're being serious or not.
I'm dead serious.
I called it a dump, but it's not a dump.
Correct. Oh, no. It is a dump. It's
Gotcha.
It's an insult to dumps.
And when I
yes.
say dump, gotcha.
Because our transfer station,
Bingo, there it is.
colloquially, whatever that word is, known as the dump,
All right, gotcha.
is very nice in comparison.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, but yeah, no, I definitely think that we need to not be afraid to spend money on something like a community center. To Kurt's point, what he said earlier, I did vote no on putting it on the ballot because for a couple of reasons. One, at that time we had very little information. We still don't have a lot of information, but that's kind of by design. I'm a little worried that. And it was a much closer vote than I anticipated that it would be. I thought it would be 2-1 against. So I was actually kind of happy that it was as close as it was. But to the point you brought up earlier, if we do go ahead and say we're going to be starting, we're going to be starting the process of building a new community center, let's say next summer, people might be like, whoa, we just said no. I don't know if that'll be the case. I feel more comfortable because there is going to be a number of opportunities for the public to weigh in going forward. There's going to be a town meeting. There's going to be many Board of Selectmen meetings and Board of Finance meetings, which are very sparsely attended traditionally. But if we can get the word out that this is going to be on the ballot or on the agenda, people might show up. I just think that the public deserves to have some input. So I'm not upset really with the process, and it was a good fact-finding mission. And I do hope that we get a new community center ASAP.
And then in terms of engaging the public going forward, I mean, this might be real dry, but heck, it's the Valley Indie podcast, man.
That's what you come for.
That's right. That's right. Robocalls. Can you get how do you reach people? Because man, we're all so busy. Like I had somebody today. Oh, actually, it was a post. I think something to do with the community center that we had posted last night or possibly the day before about the vote or something. And somebody said, "Yeah, I'm going." Somebody didn't know the vote had happened, and they were encouraging people to vote 16 hours after polls closed. So how do you? Is there any? What's the?
If people didn't realize yesterday was election day, I'm not 100% sure there's anything we can do to encourage those people to come out. If you look at the budget every year, we do social media stuff. There's stuff in the newspaper. We generally use the Code Red system to remind them. We generally vote on the budget in April or May, but every year I get accused of hiding the budget process, that I'm doing this in secret. It's a struggle to get people out. I mean, other than going literally door to door, which I think Bowen basically hit every door in Seymour and talked about this. So
that's
you can't
Christopher
say
Bowen,
that they
a
didn't know.
Democrat,
Yes.
now a member of the
Board of
Seymour Board of Selectmen.
So, I mean, he banged 1 million doors, it seems. So, I mean, people knew that the...
Are you being sarcastic?
No, I'm not.
Okay,
He banged a ton of doors.
Gotcha, okay.
So, I mean, people knew there was a vote going on. I don't know how else we get them to the polls other than picking them up and actually driving them there.
Kurt wouldn't be surprised, but Eugene, you might be surprised to know how many people that know I'm involved, right? Mm-hmm. And they say, "Oh, are you running again this year?" And I say, "Yes." And they're like, "Oh, when's the voting happening? When is election day?" As if it's not always the first Tuesday following the first Monday of November every single year.
Right.
So there is a gap in the public consciousness, I guess, of election day. You see that bore out. I think voter turnout was actually up a little bit this year in terms of municipal elections, but it's still only about 30%. In a presidential year, you might see 70%.
Right.
So it's, there's a lot of people who only vote on what they consider to be the big ones.
The important ones. Yeah.
So they kind of tune out all the conversation. And it is always fascinating to be, on this side of it, right? Like being on the Board of Selectmen and knowing that certain things have been talked about ad nauseum. And then someone says, why was this done in secret or in hiding? And it's like, well, it's all on the town website.
Right.
It's been talked about in several meetings
And
by several
Seymour,
boards sometimes.
In Seymour, you're like light years ahead of some of our neighboring communities in that like you can turn on Channel 10 and actually watch a Board of Selectmen meeting.
We're not there yet. We need to be broadcasting all town meetings
I
on
agree.
YouTube.
Oh yeah, do you think that'll be happening? Like P&Z,
I think it should. I think our
P&Z's got,
first selectmen
some
should
issues.
start carrying that mantle and really pushing for that. We have the technology.
Wow, on his way out the door, he throws the gauntlet down.
I don't have to be nice anymore.
No, I agree. I would love to have, and we've talked about this, having every meeting in the drummer room, but some boards just refuse. The Board of Ed is, the room's not big enough. The dais that we sit on is not enough. Where would you put the superintendent? Some of these people just don't want to be on tape. And
Wilson can stand.
yeah, Wilson's tall though. We'd have to bring the camera way back
Or
to
just
fit
have
him in.
stand there like Lurch.
Yeah, but no, the more we put it out, I think the better off it is. So I would love to have every single meeting online so people can see them.
And so tonight, Stephan, was your last
Everybody
Board of
says
Selectmen
that.
meeting.
He's going to go crazy.
It is not. I do have one more. The new board takes office at the beginning of December, so I have one more November meeting.
Oh, that kills that. So I don't care then.
Yeah.
Well, if you look back over how many years are you on?
4 years.
Wow.
We're getting them a cake.
It's pretty fast. Time flies.
Yeah, it has been quick.
Positive experience?
Oh, great.
Ambivalent?
No,
Okay.
great experience. I couldn't really ask for more. I think it was awesome. I don't think by any means this will be the last time I'm on an elected board, or I'm still on appointed boards and things like that. But
Foreshadowing.
Well, I'm afraid.
Foreshadowing.
I'm afraid Stephan's gonna, because you're newly married,
yeah.
right? You got a lot of stuff going on. Like sometimes.
Shout out to my wife Jen.
Hello,
She's great.
Jen.
Keeps
Yes.
it all together. That's a big thing. That's something people
Right.
don't talk about a lot, is how much of a sacrifice it is for you personally, but also for your family.
Yep.
They have to pick up the slack a lot because it's not uncommon for me to be at meetings 4 nights a week, be out on the weekends doing campaigning, and just
And a lot of people fade away because they just can't give the commitment. that
Right,
You're sticking around.
I'm taking some time to kind of unwind a little bit here. My life has been massively hectic for the last year, inside and outside of politics. So I need a little bit of a comeback, or a little bit of a pullback for a little while. But I'm not by any means going away. I'll still be very involved. I'll probably still go to a lot of the Board of Selectmen meetings just to push the buttons. But
And along that line, Kurt, I mean, you've now been in a while there. Like, right, your son is now in college, right? How old
Yep.
was he when you first became first selectman?
10.
Wow. So, what impact does? I mean, you're always out. I know, like it's anytime I text you, morning, noon, or night, you respond. How have you managed to stay on without your wife throwing you out?
I think she's used to it at this point. My wife will just continue doing whatever it is. And if I can't go, that's, as she put it, that's your loss. So if you have to miss a family event or a game or something. But, I mean, First Selectman does allow you some flexibility with your schedule. So like today, I was able to leave, go watch my daughter play soccer, and then
You can
come
make
back.
it work for you.
Yeah, so I was able to see her game this afternoon, and I came back and was able to do everything that I needed to do. So
It is an important thing to keep in mind, I think, especially now in the social media age where we can all go on to a community page or the Valley Indy Facebook page and just bash the opposition, quote unquote, party and forget that we're all at the end of the day freaking neighbors, man.
We don't do that in Seymour, though.
Yeah, it's almost
I mean, we have our
I can search
disagreements,
for
and
it. I can bring up some
but we
stuff.
don't. But it's not nasty like in some of the other towns. I mean, it's
Right.
cutthroat.
Well, let's talk about, before we get to cutthroat nasty towns, Mr. Miller, just about the race in general. I mean, there wasn't much of a race, I guess, this year. What's your take on it? You got a new board of selectmen, right? Who you got? Chris Bowen is the new guy.
That's
Chris,
it.
that's
it,
It's
right?
just a swap
Okay.
him for me.
Yeah, there was really nothing. I think the biggest competition was we put up more Republican members for the Board of Police Commissioners, so they were kind of fighting for spots.
Yeah.
And who ended up? Do you know who got on the board of police commissioners?
Yeah, it's John Duke filled the 2-year term that Frank Conroy had, and then it's Kyle Kelly, Dave Bitzo, and Tommy Bennett.
All right, congratulations. From your side, I know, Stephan, like it's hard to be the head of the Democratic Party in a town where Chris Bowen has pointed out on Facebook that it's Republican.
Yeah.
Right? Rosa DeLauro, nationally known,
Yeah.
wins everywhere in the Valley, Democratic congresswoman, loses in Seymour.
Well,
Like that is a Republican town.
Funny enough about Rosa, I'm very friendly with Rosa, although less friendly now that she lost Seymour this last time around.
But
I thought the
launched
political
a campaign in Seymour a couple of years ago, right? I remember being at Seymour High School and Rosa DeLauro came in.
that must have been a while back. I don't
It
know.
was a
Before my time, but I remember vividly after 2016. When she had won every town in her district except Prospect, and every time I would see her, she would curse out the Prospect, and so I was like, "Wow, okay, we got to make sure we don't go down that path." And then the last time around, she lost, and so I had to kind of hide my head and pray that I
Don't run
that
into
I
her.
don't I don't see her as much, or that she's feeling charitable when she does see me. But no, Rosa's great though. I love Rosa very much. But to get back to your question, I go on a lot of tangents now.
No, that's right.
No, that was perfect because you set up the whole thing. And I'm not saying Seymour is a bad town because it's Republican. Take it easy, commenters. I just mean because
That's your opinion.
You're
Get him,
out,
Demko. Get him.
No, you're outnumbered,
Yeah, there's a lot of factors.
and you just went through a race. What's your summation of how your side, for lack of a better word, did? Although there's nothing. Seymour's very friendly.
It's friendly, yeah. To a certain point, it's friendly. It's as friendly as it really can be. There's always some built-in tension, but it's if I had to assess this year, I would say that we failed miserably, and it really starts with me. We made some different choices this year to try to go after some under-ticket seats as opposed to some of the higher ticket seats.
Like P&Z, like you running.
Yeah, like planning and
P&Z?
zoning, board of police commissioners. We put up more candidates than we were allotted in most of the other races, but we didn't do it for first selectman or board of selectmen, which everybody's like, oh, why didn't you do that? And I was like, well, look at the results. You know, their most popular people typically are in those positions, so we weren't going to win those no matter what. I thought we might have some success down, but really what it did was it made a lot of our people very complacent, and a lot of our people decided to sit this one out, and that's a failure of leadership. That's my failure to not inspire and engage enough of our people into actually running a race, and the results showed that. 2 years ago, we were very close to winning some seats. For example, a Board of Education seat, we lost by about 30 votes. We would have flipped it to have a majority. This year, we were hundreds of votes away in every race. So you see that. You kind of get what you deserve when you're not willing to put in the work. You get crushed, especially when we're up against it in the way that we are in Seymour.
Right, I was going to say couldn't have been that. I mean, you said voter turnout was just about normal because my
It
sense
was actually a little up actually from
There were no
2 years
real
ago, probably
issues
about
in-
400 or 500 voters
Yeah,
up.
it's higher than I thought this year.
Yeah, it was about 3,000 people voted this year. I think last time around it was like 2,600 or something like that.
So what's your plan now for the Democratic Party in Seymour going forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like I said, I am going to take a week or two to digest all of this stuff. There's a lot of information to be gathered, a lot of data to look through and sift through, and people to talk to, frankly. But I got to get with my leadership team on my Democratic Town Committee. We got to really do some soul searching, figure out how we want to proceed, what kind of strategies we want to take on, if we want to start thinking about what we're going to do in 2021 and obviously more close 2020, really start the ball rolling. If we want to, sit down and think about if we want to have some success.
And then, Mr. Miller, is this? Is there a Bible around? Is there under your seat? Is there a Bible you could place your?
Oddly
hand
enough,
on?
we were talking about this on the car right here.
Is this your last term as Seymour's top elected official?
I am 99.9% positive that this is my last term.
So that's a no.
I don't believe him.
I don't.
Listen,
For the record,
I will listen. I will.
What's the point? Whatever.
If let's say it's the community center and we're trying to get it across the finish line, I mean, I would probably stay to get that across the finish line. I think people would understand that. If there were two candidates that I thought were just not prepared or were going to do a good enough job as first selectman, I would probably stay. But if there was a great candidate, Republican or Democrat, I'm done. 10 years. It's time for a change. I mean, I supported term limits because I don't think people should stay in these jobs forever. These are not lifetime appointments. I think change is good. I think the team of people that have been in place the last 8 years, both Republican and Democrat, have done a good job of, rebuilding the finances and kind of turning Seymour around, getting it headed in the right direction. I think having somebody come in with a fresh perspective on that, I think now would take Seymour to the next level. So,
okay. So,
but I'm not going to be the person that says 100% because then something happens and I run and everybody calls me a liar. So I will leave that one tiny little wiggle.
All right,
space.
gotcha.
and if I could, I just want to add a couple things to the positive. I don't want to be too negative. From our perspective, we did get some new people elected. People like Chris Bowen, who's very deserving of his seat, despite the fact it wasn't contested. He did put in a lot of work.
He did put effort in, yeah.
He did. Yeah. He absolutely did, and he's done a good job engaging people both in person and online. That's commendable, and that's a great thing that we can build on. Kwame Dunbar won a seat on the Board of Finance. That was a big thing. Tom Bennett, first-time candidate, won a seat on the Board of Police Commissioners, and I think he'll be a great addition to that board. So there's some good. We still have some good people in the mix. There were some good people that lost, unfortunately. But you just got to pull yourself back up and go at it again. So it wasn't all bad.
Do you guys want to look at some of the other towns for a moment? Some takes. I mean, okay, Stephan,
That was a pretty. I don't know. You were stirring the pot there a little bit with with that question.
Well,
It's great.
Would we like
But
to?
yeah, sure, absolutely.
My fear. Okay, so
a lot of other
like,
towns are more fun to talk about.
Here's
Yes.
the thing about these podcasts, right? We're talking. It's an hour. It's labor intensive to edit these things, and when all I ask is that people. It's the three of us in this room. What I'm trying to say. Don't bash people. I don't have time to reach out and be like, hey, Kurt Miller said this about you, Mr. Cassetti. How do you respond? I don't need that. Okay, Kurt?
I promise.
Take your Cassetti bashing somewhere else.
I will not bash.
Yeah, the two of us, Kurt is far more likely to bash Cassetti than me.
But, okay, Stephan, you ran down the state of the Democratic Party as it is in 2019 in the town of Seymour. But if you go down Route 8 a little bit, first stop Derby, get off at Home Depot right there. Democrats! Whoa, they almost took out a first-term Republican.
It would have never happened. It never happened before, right?
I did not think. I thought, first-term incumbent, regardless of the underlying issues in Derby in terms of the big financial stuff that dominated the campaign, I didn't really think that would resonate, and that he would have a cakewalk. What do you think happened there?
Oh, it's
Derby.
Again, you can't ever. I'm always very careful about saying what I think happened in an election because there's so many factors and it's really hard to know exactly which ones played a major role. But there's a few. One, Brian Capolo was a great candidate. He did the work. I wish I could have helped him more because he was deserving of that help. But I had my own town to worry about. He did the work. They had good candidates. Oni, who was in here earlier, the chair of the Derby DTC, has done a really, really nice job of kind of putting the pieces back together in Derby. They had some fighting from last time around. Infighting. And then, of course, you have the whole financial disaster that kind of fell upon the city. And I think that whether it's fair or not, whoever is in charge at the time is going to be held somewhat responsible when something like that is missed. So I think it just came down to timing and work. I think that they set a really good foundation. They did pick up a bunch of seats on like Board of Aldermen.
They flipped the Board of
Yep.
Aldermen, which
They picked up seats on other boards, which is really impressive.
I mean, and the fact that I mean the treasurer who's been there forever. I thought that was a massive upset.
Yep.
I thought that was the biggest upset I've seen, other than Mayor Cassetti defeating Della Volpe back in 2013. But let me just ask
I'll
you
let the
question,
reporter fill in the gaps as to why the treasurer's race may have gone the way it did. I'm not nearly as surprised as you might be. But yeah, they did a great job, and
Together
and
we
they should be
fill
very
gaps.
very
You got gaps.
proud.
I'm quoting Rocky and Adrian from Rocky 1. You got gaps. I got gaps. Together we fill gaps. But my hypothesis with the Derby Democrats and their resurgence sort of there in Derby was, what is that app you
The walk app?
Yeah, like the van app?
Yeah, Van.
How important do you think that played in Derby? I mean, because that has a lot of info. I was getting text messages all the time. I said it in this other podcast because my wife's a Democrat, but her name is connected to my number. So I was getting calls, text messages. I said I'd write them back. They said, "Who you're voting for mayor?" Brian Capolo loves rainbows and education, and I was like, "I'm voting for Chris Bowen." Said it right back to him. But how important were things like that?
Well,
I mean, I'm
definitely not going to peel back the layers of the onion with Van. But I will say that
do only Democrats have that?
any smart politician will know who their potential voters are and will be effective in contacting them regardless of party. And I think you can't even come close to competing if you're not getting those insights as to who your voters are and talking to those people. And that's a big problem. That the good news is they have a lot of young people involved there, partially because of the Naugatuck Valley Young Democrats, but also because of just demographics. And young people embrace the technology, and they embrace the fact that door knocking and contacting voters is like 99% of the puzzle. And some of the holdouts will say, I think their days are numbered.
I mean, local elections, it's retail politics. So if you're going to take the time to go to the doors and identify supporters, you want to make sure that those supporters are coming out on election day. And the value of these apps, I knock on Stephan's door and he says, well, yeah, Kurt, I support you. And it's election day and it's 3:00. Stephan hasn't voted yet. You need to make sure you're reaching out to him to see, is there something wrong? Do you need a ride to the polls? Oh, no, I'm working. I'm not going to get there till 6:00. And you track your voters and you make sure that they're going to be there, particularly in close elections like we saw in Derby, where if 40 people would have changed this election. So
Get
if
out the
there's,
vote.
I make it and my
It's a
wife
literal
doesn't, or we're not getting absentee ballots in. I mean, you need to know and track where these votes are coming from because, I mean, in a lot of cases, every vote matters.
What was your take on
A very good campaign and campaign staff and candidate will know what the results are before they happen.
Right.
They'll know within, probably 3 or 4% of what the results are going to be. They're going to know, you identify voters. That's a painstaking process. That's why you need to start campaigning early. You need to go to doors. You need to call people. You need to text them now, Facebook, any way that you can get in touch with people. You target those people. You find out bluntly, are you voting for us or not? If not, you go back and you keep hitting them. You keep hitting them until they give you an answer. And you just want it. I mean, obviously you want them to say yes, but you'd rather hear them say no than maybe, right? So you want to know who these people are. And then the last week is going back to these people and saying, will you vote for us? How are you getting there? What time of day are you going to vote? Just make sure that these people are going to show up. And then, if you're a really good campaign, you will spend election day making sure all of the people who said they're voting for you have voted. And that's regardless of party, regardless of what issue you're pushing or what candidate you are. It's just common sense. It's what you have to do. It's a nice thought to say that, I'm going to put my name up for office and may the best man win. But that's just not the reality of winning elections. And people probably don't like to hear that, quite frankly, because people want to think, well, the best person is going to win because they're going to get the most votes. No, a lot of times the best campaign wins because they're a lot more competent than the opposition.
All right, Kurt Miller, on that thought, is that what is almost happened in Derby? Was it more that Dziekan's campaign wasn't quite as well oiled as the Democrats in Derby? Have you heard any scuttlebutt about that?
I have not. I think the Derby Republicans did a good job trying to ID voters and making phone calls and making contacts. If you look back historically in Derby, elections are close. If you go back to the Tony Staferi days when it was Foley and Staferi, those races were never separated by. There was never big numbers
and
that
if you look
separated
at the numbers,
the two of them.
It's almost a miracle that Republicans always get in because they're outnumbered by Democrats.
And then
unaffiliated blows everybody away.
Even when then Anita beat Tony, I mean those were close. Zeke's first race against Anita was close, and I think last 2 years ago was kind of the outlier where there was such a large number to the victory that Zeke had. He won by a couple hundred votes.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think the finance issues played a part in that. That's a big hurdle to get over when you have a lot of people that are upset when the mill rate goes up, taxes go up. They perceive that there's financial mismanagement. And to Stephan's point, you're the person that's in charge, so I think you instantly get blamed regardless of who's at fault. I honestly think that the residents of Derby got it right with where they laid the blame for the financial woes that the city of Derby had. And I think if you go down the ballot and see how votes went, I think the blame was laid in the correct position. One
of the amazing things about the text messages that I kept getting from the Derby Democrats, which I've never had happen before, they would ask me, what's your biggest concern as a Derby resident? And it was, I think the guy's name was Josh, and I was just like, getting my husband out of Archie Moore's. And despite the fact I was they just kept at it. The whole time. So campaigns are,
you have to have extremely thick skin to actually be a candidate or to do campaigning, because the amount of times that I've gone to doors of people I know are Democrats and I know will vote for me, and they tell me to get the F off their property without asking me a question it's staggering. It happens all the time. It goes both ways, and it's people that you don't expect. It's people that are nice people typically, but they're, for some reason, in this day and age, people get horrifically offended if you show up on their doorsteps. Like for some reason the 30-second imposition, and sorry to voters who feel like this, but come on, I mean, get it together, grow up.
It's a democracy.
People are coming to talk to you about something that's important to you and that you will often complain that you don't know about. And then when we get to your doorstep, instead of even just saying, okay, great, I'll take this into consideration, and then all that I'm going to say is, hey, give me a call if you have any questions. I might come back to check in. Instead, they say, no, you need to get out of here. I can't be bothered to listen to you for 30 seconds. But then I'll turn around and I'll complain when I don't know what's coming up.
It is amazing.
That's the biggest.
Or they won't vote.
That's the biggest irritant that I think every candidate and canvasser has, that they don't often speak in public. But just know that anybody who's ever gone door knocking is very irritated with a segment of the people that they talk to. Right. There's a lot of people, even people who won't vote for you, that are very nice. There are plenty of those people too. Mm-hmm. And it can be very rewarding to talk to a lot of those people, and even to try maybe convince some of those people to come your way, or even if not, just they know you now, and you're not like some sort of evil person anymore because you're on a different side. But no, it's the people who are outright hostile just because you've come to introduce yourself. It's unacceptable behavior. It's very immature behavior.
I don't know where that came from, but even I remember starting as a reporter in 1998, and all the time you'd have to go, like say there was a shooting, you always knocked on all the neighbors' doors to talk to people. It was just you would just do it. When Governor Rowland got into all his trouble, I remember just going door to door in Danbury, just knocking on people's doors. But something's changed. Like now.
Well, because
I never do that anymore.
Because it's not expected anymore. There's, I think you know about it, right? This is the Sebastian Maniscalco. He has a great comedy bit about it, where 20 years ago it used to be an event when somebody would ring the doorbell, right? He used to say, "Oh, that's exciting. Let's go see. Let's go see who it is."
Yeah,
like, "Oh, come on in.
Yeah.
Now if you don't get 3 texts and a courtesy call before you show up, people are like, who the hell's at my door?
Right.
What are they doing?
I hate when people ring my doorbell.
Sure, but don't be
like
a
to
dick.
hide.
Be a nice person.
Right,
Like it's, I mean, it's.
Wait, you just curse? You can't curse on my podcast. Man, I'm gonna have to edit. All right, hopefully nobody heard that.
That's
He
okay.
said dork. He said
don't be a dork.
For the record, he said dork. Let's go to Ansonia.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah, this was that was
the land of dorks.
that was
Wow.
Stephan Behuniak.
Yeah, that was Stephan Behuniak, please.
I love a lot of people in Ansonia.
Town Democratic Seymour guy. But I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know where you thought that was gonna go in terms of the mayor's race of Phil Tripp challenging Mayor Cassetti. Surprised? Not surprised? Do you think it was going to be close? I didn't know where that was going. I
didn't think it was going to be close at all.
Why?
I have no issue with Phil Tripp as a person. He's an okay guy. I've never had a problem with him. But I think a lot of people were upset that someone that is as conservative as he is was running.
Or
was potentially. Was running as a Democrat. And I think it turned a lot of Democrats off that, 3 months before he announced he was running, he was one of the biggest Trump supporters in the area. He was putting a lot of stuff on social media that was very hard right. You don't just switch in 3 months. And I think what it turned into, it was, political expediency, that this was an opportunity for him to settle a personal score against the mayor and run against him. And the Democratic ticket was the easiest platform. The people I feel bad for, the Democrats in the city of Ansonia, because they didn't have a person, in my opinion, that truly represents their values, that truly represents the values of the Democratic Party. They had someone
Although he
that
was embraced. And did you listen to the podcast interview that I did with him? You didn't think he came from the heart when he sort of explained why he had that change of heart?
So if I put something on my Facebook that basically says that anybody that comes into this country illegally is bringing disease, I'm going to put that out tomorrow. And then 3 weeks from now, I'm going to apologize and say I shouldn't have said that. I was wrong. I don't know what I was thinking. People aren't going to let me off the hook for that. Your values don't change in 3 months. I'm sorry, they just don't. And that's the problem with, I think, politics. If you want to run against someone, run against them. Run as a Republican, run in the primary. Run as an unaffiliated voter. Don't mask yourself and go to the Democratic Party. Again, I feel bad for the Democrats in the city of Ansonia because I think they got sold a bill of goods. There's plenty of good Democrats in the city of Ansonia that would have been a much better challenge to Mayor Cassetti than Phil Tripp.
Although overall the Democrats had a decent night. They picked up seats on the board of aldermen.
Those are Democrats. I mean, Tarek Roslin, like him or not, he's a Democrat, and he's true to his core values. He won.
But he's a town chairman.
Right, but he's true to his values, and he won. Now he has a seat on the board of aldermen, and you saw several other folks that pick seats up. How are they able to do that? And Phil Tripp gets blown out. Again, because he's masking as a Democrat. He is not a Democrat, and it's a shame. I don't know where the Democratic Town Committee in Ansonia goes from here. I really don't, because they've put... I don't agree with it.
Stephan, as a member or head of the Democratic Party up in Seymour, what was the talk heading into this race?
Well, there wasn't a lot of talk among Seymour Democrats about the Ansonia race, believe it or not. But
you were involved with the Valley
correct,
Young
yeah.
Democrats.
I have a little bit of insight.
Who I think they interviewed Tripp. Did they endorsement not publicize it? What was that? What ended up happening?
I'm not going to get into what happened with that. That's not my place to say. What I will say is, on one of your podcasts, I did say that if the situation was happening in Seymour, I don't think we would have taken the same course of action that they did. I believed, as little as I follow Ansonia, which I probably follow Ansonia more than I should, but it's not a ton. I'm not someone who's big on switching parties for political expediency. I think it would be very easy for me to become a Republican in Seymour and win a seat on pretty much any board I would like, I don't think I would have a problem, because I know that I would outwork whoever my opponent is, and if I had the R, it would make my life a lot easier. But I wouldn't do that because I'm not a Republican. So, and I don't trust people who say that they're one thing but aren't. With that said, I had an opportunity to talk to Phil Tripp at length through Naugatuck Valley Young Democrats. I found him to be very genuine in his, remorse for, if you want to call it remorse for past actions. I talked to a lot of people within the Ansonia Democrats who were even more convinced than I was about his, his, let's call it a come to Jesus moment, where he realized that he's no longer a Republican. I mean, you never know what is in the soul of a person. But I do believe that I don't believe he's a Republican any longer. If you had to say, do you believe everything that Democrats stand for? I don't know. I just don't know him well enough. But I do believe that I understand why they did what they did in endorsing him. But with that said, I'm not overly surprised about the results at the top of the ticket for mayor in Ansonia, just because it is hard. Cassetti is an entrenched incumbent, whether you think it's the proper course of action or not, and Kurt would know more than most about this. He hasn't raised taxes very much. Some people have seen a big tax increase, but the mill rate hasn't gone up, and people only like to look at the mill rate sometimes. Now, it's always going to be hard to be an incumbent. It's always going to be hard to convince somebody that this person who was a Republican is now a Democrat. But he did run a much closer race than they did the last couple times around. And there was a lot of successes for the Ansonia Democrats. They picked up 4 seats on the Board of Aldermen. Potentially, it's a small chance, but they have a couple recounts coming. It's always potentially that they could pick up a couple more. They picked up some seats on some of the down ballot races.
And town clerk, which was
the town clerk, which is a big one.
Yeah,
I think the future of Ansonia Democrats is bright. They just need to, if they want to get Cassetti out, they really need to start now. And I think they already have started to lay the groundwork for the way that they're going to beat him. But they need a candidate that is going to somehow get that 50+1% of the vote. I don't know who it is exactly, but it's on them to figure it out. But I think they could build on it.
Every 2 years, they've brought up the financial mismanagement of the city, and every 2 years, there's many letters to the editor sent that I publish, highlighting the way the finances are in the city of Ansonia. But he keeps getting reelected. Do they have to do something different? Well, and also, how much of it? Do you have an idea of how much the Democrats in Ansonia are sort of fueled by a dislike of Cassetti? Because it does seem personal between the two sides. It did a little bit last night.
And I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth or feelings in anyone's hearts or anything like that.
What have you observed?
But I will say, I don't think there was any great personal animosity with Mayor Cassetti until 2017, when they pulled some very dirty political tricks, some that you publicized heavily. I believe that they crossed a line that you shouldn't be crossing, and I think that sent some people over the edge. And I would also caution people that some of the loudest voices that are attributed to the Democratic Party aren't necessarily in the Democratic Party. These are, lone actors. Unfortunately for my sanity, I follow the Ansonia community pages,
right?
And it's good for a laugh sometimes, but and a lot of times
it can be soul sucking.
Well, a lot of times there's some really good stuff posted in there, because there's so much content that comes out of those pages. There is a percentage that is good, positive stuff, and that's nice. But there's just so much bickering and back and forth and just petty disputes, and it's. But I'll tell you, a lot of that are people that are not associated with the parties. They're just kind of lone crazy people.
But if I can add one thing, there's not financial mismanagement in the city of Ansonia. People may not like the way the finances are being managed, and I think it comes down to a philosophical thing. When you say financial mismanagement, money's lost, money's being stolen, that type of thing. That's not the case in Ansonia. It's a philosophy that the Cassetti administration has followed that a lot of people do not agree with. I mean, I personally don't agree with some of the things that they did early on with the heavy use of fund balance. But if you sit down, you have a conversation with them, why did you do that? They have a very specific reason, and they were following a set plan. Now, you could say, I don't agree with the plan. I think the plan is bad. But I think using the term financial mismanagement is just not the right term to use. And again, to get back to one other point, with the Democratic candidate for mayor, denouncing President Trump doesn't mean that you're not a Republican anymore. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of President Trump. I like some of the policies that he's put in. I like some of the stances that he's taken. That's a small part of what he's done. There's a lot of things that I don't agree with that I don't think should be doing. So distancing yourself from the president is not saying that you're not a Republican anymore. And I don't think in a 3 or 4 month period your values change, because there's some very distinct differences between Republicans and Democrats, and I don't think you lose that over a 3 month period. As entrenched as Phil was in the values of a Republican, I can see someone like me who kind of straddles the line, switching from a Republican to a Democrat, because I'm fiscally conservative, I'm socially tolerant, so I think I'm very close. That was definitely not Phil. I mean, Phil was a hard right conservative, and to make the jump from there to a Democrat in a very short period of time, again, I just don't buy. So, I mean, I could now, if he jumped over to become a Republican, okay, that makes sense. That's not a big jump. There's not a lot of difference between the two of us. I think we probably agree on 60 or 70% of the issues, but there's the 30% that's the core of the Republicans, the core of the Democrats. We're just going to respectfully disagree with each other on. I don't see how someone in Phil's position makes that big of a jump. I don't see how a Tarek Roslin...
he's not here.
No, and I'm not bashing him. He is a public
figure, and he ran for mayor, so I think it's certainly our right to discuss this issue.
Right.
But
like Tarek, I don't see Tarek becoming a Republican either. But I would use the exact same thing.
All right, so those are...
Him coming the other way. Tarek is
do you think Phil fooled them? Because they embraced him, and they were with him.
I'll go back to what I
don't think he fooled them, but...
If they're convinced that he's a Democrat, isn't he? Can't we go with them because they endorsed him and stood by him? And it wasn't like they were ignoring him; they were with him 100% from what I saw.
I think the process of, and
I'll get a response to that.
This is not. I didn't even really want to talk about this, but he, from what I have personally witnessed and talked to people about, I don't think it's necessarily accurate to say that he had a switch at 3 months ago. I think this has been a process that he, and again, you can't judge the soul of a person you don't know, but I would tend to believe that he's come a long way from what he was, whether that's good, bad, or indifferent. But do I think he's the most left-leaning guy ever? Probably not, but I don't know that it's necessarily fair to dismiss him calling himself a Democrat now.
Well, and that's a fair point.
I mean, if you want to talk about Trump, Trump has been back and forth a million times.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Trump was one of the most liberal people around. The guy hates guns, whatever he says right now to appease his base. The guy, donated to every Democratic candidate there is, and now he realized the path to expediency, if you want to talk about that. And
I agree.
And he ran with it wholeheartly. So it's not.
I was a Kasich guy, so I'm.
So it's not like it's
But to that point again, I mean, we don't want to certainly beat up on Phil. That's not the point. Because again, personally, I have no issues with Phil. I mean, I've always had a good relationship with him, very cordial.
And I'm saying that because I'm waiting for the email from someone saying I didn't give Phil or his campaign a chance to respond. But then again, I mean, this is a political event. It was a race for mayor.
Yeah, that's
And
why.
we're on a
And again,
podcast
this is
reacting to it.
I'm not bashing Phil as a person. I'm just talking about the decisions, the political decisions that were made. But again, if you're having that change of heart and you're moving that way, you're going to go back and you're going to look at old social media posts and things like that, and you're going to say, well, maybe I should have taken some of that stuff down, or you'll delete different things. That stuff was all right up there until right after he announced. So if you had that big a change of heart, you're going to go back and say, wow, I shouldn't have done that, and all that stuff was still up on social media. You shut your page down, you strip all that down. You just can't reinvent yourself. I mean, this day and age, stuff is public, stuff is out there. If you said it, you said it. But to Stephan's point, I mean, people can have a change of heart. They can realize, hey, maybe my thinking was not correct. And
then on the local level, it's not like we're all, the national level, there seem to be the different tribes and they're separated.
Well, you see,
but on the local level, man, there's some Democrats
and
who
that's a
support
fair point.
Trump, and it's all over the place.
Now,
especially in Derby and
I can
Ansonia.
tell you there's a lot
That's
of...
a fair point.
There are a lot of Democrats, we'll call them Democrats, that I know, and I'm not saying necessarily people that are on my town committee, who the only way they're a Democrat is because they haven't changed their party registration, and the same thing for Republicans.
Absolutely.
There's sometimes a different
and there's
flavor
also
on the
and there's a
local level.
reason, if you want to get into political philosophy.
After this, let's talk about ICE.
Sure, let's. Yeah, okay, we can talk about ICE all we want. That'll be fun.
That would make the drink colder, yes.
There's a reason that towns tend to skew towards Republicans, whereas like the state will go towards Democrats, and it's really
Cities
that
in the state,
I think that people don't want their town government spending too much money, essentially, and Republicans have done a great job of branding themselves as the people who don't spend a lot of money, which if we can go town by town all we want, and we could look at which mayors have spent the most money and not to say mismanaged, but poorly managed their money, and I don't think you would find any correlation between Republicans and Democrats on that, because town issues are so vastly different than state or national issues that Republicans and Democrats in different places get a boost that is probably undeserved in town races, because people associate things that they like on a national scale with things that they think are going to happen locally, and it's every town is different, every municipality is different, and it's why that I say this all the time when I'm here, but I don't think you should be allowed to have a party affiliation if you're running in a town election. I think you should have to earn it on your own merits, because there's just so many people, despite all the work that people do to inform voters, there's just so many people who for whatever reason don't take the time to get informed about what the people actually believe in. They just say, you know what, I'm a Republican, I vote Republican, or I'm a Democrat, I vote Democrat.
See, and I agree with that on the local level. We're not going to get into a gun discussion. We're not going to get into an abortion discussion at the Board of Selectmen. To Stephan's point, we want to talk about, keeping taxes stable, making sure the roads are plowed, roads are repaired, garbage is picked up, we have a good school system. Those are local issues. And had he just said, listen, I'm a Republican, I'm going to switch to an unaffiliated, I'm going to run as a Democrat because locally I have a huge problem with what took place with the funding with the Board of Education. And I personally side with this group of folks. And if this group of folks wants to endorse and support me because we have a similar local belief, I have absolutely no problem with that. I mean, that's the way it should be. But to Stephan's point, switching from a Republican to a Democrat, it really has nothing to do with these races. It's more, I align with this group of people that live in the city of Ansonia. These people want to support me, and I'm going to run with their endorsement. That I would have preferred, in my opinion, had Phil done that. Just said, I'm going to switch from a Republican to an unaffiliated voter, but I'm going to run with the support and the endorsement of the Democratic Party in Ansonia. I would have absolutely no problem with that.
Just the last thing I'll probably ever say about Phil Tripp's 2019 run for mayor, I personally found him to be genuine in my conversations with him. But again, you don't know, but I found him to be genuine. At the same time, if it was my town committee, I don't think that we would have gone on the same path. And I think that's the simplest way I could put it.
And in fairness, I haven't spoken to Phil in probably 5 or 6 months.
It would have been nice to see them debate, I think, if they had somehow worked out. I think that
would have been very interesting.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, I had him in here. He did not avoid a question. He did not.
No. I think part of the reason I found him to be
the same thing with Mayor Cassetti.
Part of the reason I found him to be genuine is he talked very candidly, and he's done this in public, about his life and his past and his beliefs, and he's admitted he's been wrong on things, and you never know. But to the point of the debate, I really enjoyed the email you sent me asking if I wanted to debate you, because no one would agree to debate. So
I would have gladly debated.
If I was in the state, I would have taken you up on it.
You know what? I don't remember sending that.
Yeah,
so that might have been an Archie Moore's tweet.
I got it. I woke up one morning. I was in West Virginia in a cabin, and I look at my email, and it was literally just like, "Do you want to come in and debate me? No one else will."
That's exactly what happened. All right, gentlemen. I think that's a wrap. I want to thank you guys.
You don't want to talk about Shelton?
No.
Why is Shelton always excluded in the Valley?
Because you know what? They got money for advertising, and they got their own paper
they have
over
the Shelton
there.
Herald, right?
Yeah.
The enemy.
Where does the corporation go? Where the money is. That's why we're a nonprofit one-person newspaper here in Derby and Ansonia.
Donate to Valley Indy, valleyindy.org.
Seymour is like in this sort of nebulous media land where you're kind of like, you're just
Well, 2/3 of our town gets voices. That's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Well,
Veronica was at our Board of Selectmen meeting again.
Not the whole town, mind you. Not the whole town gets voices.
Yeah.
Some of the town gets voices.
Some of the town.
Yeah. But it's like a Bethlehem, Roxbury focused newspaper. So
I love that when you hear about you get a lot of details in the Bethlehem Fair.
You're really knocking it out of the park with those.
Not
legal
to knock
notices.
the voices.
Reaching a lot of Seymour residents who want to show up for a public hearing on affordable housing. Voices is where people
not to knock the voices. They do show up to a lot of meetings, and they cover a lot of things that you wouldn't necessarily expect. But
Mean Jean, she's a regular. Talked to her twice today.
Wow.
Yeah.
You should have brought her. She could have done this.
Yeah.
I could have went to Crave.
Look at, it's like he's getting advertising dollars by just giving shout outs.
He's listing every business in the Valley. Hey, if you want Eugene,
none of these people will advertise.
Eugene will say the name of your business, but if you want him to actually tell you how good the food is and what dish to order, throw him a few $100.
That's right.
It's not that hard. Come on, you're a business. You could afford it.
Copper City, we could go there for drinks afterwards, right? Maybe get something to eat at the.
I don't know about Copper City. They're not very good from what I've heard.
No, actually, you know what? Honestly, though, no. I went there when they first
they
opened.
don't donate.
I'm trying to.
They were good.
Did they ever donate?
No, of course not. Nobody.
Then they're bad.
But I don't think we'll ever get like it does. Even if we're a newspaper, if you're a business, where are you going to advertise? Why would you go to the local publication like this when you can just go to Facebook and do that? It's just that's kind of a reality. Yeah. So really, I always complain about we don't have any advertisers. But if I ran Crave or Copper City, I wouldn't advertise in this either. It's just sort of a reality.
You're definitely going to want to cut this part out of the podcast.
Now I'm going to jump out the window.
But you know something? If you had a monthly show with Stephan and I, we would drive the ratings up.
I have a lot more fruit time.
And I guarantee you would get a ton of advertising.
You'll land me in court. I'm already anxious about this. I'm going to have Phil Tripp's campaign, angry emails.
I don't think we were disrespectful.
I don't think we really got into anything that isn't public knowledge, really.
Oh, yeah.
I think in some of the other races, we could have definitely gone to some places, but we...
All right, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you.
What about Oxford? We don't want to cover Oxford?
Look,
Beacon Falls?
I got to...
what kind of political breakdown is this?
Oxford's not part of the Valley anymore. They're gone.
Beacon Falls?
Beacon Falls is a wild land.
Yeah,
it's a
I don't
strange place.
I didn't make the coverage area. I'm a hired gun. That's another thing. People think like I own this. I
thought you did too.
No, I had nothing. I was brought on years after they got the grant. I'm just an employee. If I had it, I wouldn't have said like, "Hey, let's cover Seymour." I would have picked one town.
That would have been it.
Yeah, So it's not my fault. All right, see you.
For hundreds of years we brought you the news.